Good morning and welcome to the EZFX Signal Trading Room broadcast for August 2nd, 2016. My name is Bradley Freed. Thank you for joining me. We'll be, in the next 20 to 30 minutes, we'll be going through our watch list, reviewing our open and trades we're watching, and talk about any results from any trades that we've placed this week. To start off, let's go ahead and review our watch list. Oh, and by the way, if you have any questions during this broadcast, please post them to the chat room that we have on this page. If you are watching the recording and you have questions, please post to the Trading Room group. Please join if you haven't already. And that's under the community menu. You can also send me a private message via the community, or you can send me an email at ezfxsignal@gmail.com. Trades we are watching the Swiss yen buy, pound yen buy, euro yen buy, Aussie yen buy, New Zealand yen buy, euro dollar sell, pound dollar buy, and Aussie dollar sell. Yesterday, I sent signals for the dollar peso sell and the dollar yen buy. Unfortunately, these have stopped out, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. Then we have new trades that we're waiting to set up. We haven't set any signals out on for the CAD yen buy and the dollar Swiss buy. And we have open trades on the New Zealand dollar buy. And that's actually been closed, but I'll talk about that a little later. The euro pound sell, pound CAD buy, pound New Zealand buy, pound Aussie buy, and pound Swiss buy. So let's jump to the charts. There's been a lot of stuff that's been going on. I want to talk about it all with you, and let's have a look at what's going on. Okay, so to start off with, let's look at our signals trades: the dollar peso and the dollar yen. This pair had set up. I talked about it yesterday. We had a sell bubble. We had triangular moving average moving down. We also, and I don't think I had drawn these just today, we did have a trend line break. I hadn't drawn a trend line, but there were two nice wicks we could connect, and this had been broken. Down here, it was too far away from our required stop to get in, but it had retraced, and it looked like it was starting to fail a little bit, like it was topping out. So I went ahead and took a first try on this trade. And unfortunately, it didn't drop. It actually jumped up, stopped out, and then started to fall again. So the initial attempt was a failure, but I want to take another trade in this sell direction as soon as we get another valid setup. So we did take a loss on this. Let me see how big that was. See, dollar peso was about 135 pips, give or take. And then the dollar yen we also set up. And this, and my internet connection just reset. So it'll take a second for the charts to start moving again. Okay, so here we had a buy bubble, a fairly distinct one of the better ones we've seen. And we had a class A signal. This zone had become class A when divergence printed inside this zone. And it popped up here, and to me, this was a sign that this has maybe started to move up, that all these bullish signals were starting to at least get us moving up to the monthly pivot and the new monthly and the new weekly pivot. So I went ahead and bought it and set a stop right below the recent lows. Unfortunately, this pair was not done trending downwards. So the downtrend continues, And I was able to use the high made off the entry signal and draw a trend line, which I'm going to use for my next entry attempt. But I will trade this pair again in the buy direction. It'll probably set up a little later in the week, looking at maybe Thursday or Friday even for this to set up again. But I do want to trade it again in the buy direction, and we'll just be patient and wait for additional confirmation before we take our next attempt on this pair. This pair did have a fairly tight stop on it. We had a loss of about, it's not so, but it was only 73 pips in this case. So pips wise, it may look large, but of course we're sizing our positions, so we're only losing 1% or less of our account when we do stop out and take a loss. And so both of these I'm waiting to set up again, so they will go back in our watching portion of our list for a retrade. The other pair I was looking at we'll just keep going through our list here. The CAD yen and the dollar Swiss, these were two other pairs that we were looking at pretty closely. The CAD yen never really gave me additional confirmation. The zone is class A because we have divergence printed inside it. Like I said yesterday, this is a really fat zone that was created by the Brexit drop. So it's not really totally reliable. So we need to think about other things. Our buy bubble disappeared because the pair moved lower and the triangular moving average reprinted. So that intersection changed. So we lost that point of confirmation. And we never really got a triangular moving average color change on this pair. So we're still waiting for all these things to happen. I still like this trade, but we need to have more confirmation. So I'm just holding on, and we'll see if we can get a new buy bubble. We have a nice place. I was able to draw a trend line on the recent price action. So trend line break, triangular moving average. This will set up for us. We will be able to take a trade. I might adjust the profit targets. We do have a nice new monthly and weekly pivot right here, which if the risk to reward ratio is good, would be a great initial profit target. So when this trade does set up and I do take an entry, then we'll reconsider everything. But at this point, this is actually no longer a new trade because we lost those points of confirmation. So I'm just going to put it back in the watching list with the rest of this. Dollar Swiss, let's look at the dollar Swiss. This is probably the closest to setting up of anything I've seen. We still have an intact buy bubble. The pair is moving lower. We have class B divergence. We don't have class A divergence. I was able to draw some nice trend lines over price. The first one kind of got broken. The second one hasn't yet. But I'm going to be very careful. The dollar seems to still be strengthening against this pair. So I will need to see more confirmation to get into a trade. So what am I waiting for? Break of this trend line here. Triangular moving average color change. And I already have class B divergence. So if I have those three things, I'm willing to go ahead and take a trade. And depending on the required risk to reward ratio, maybe the monthly pivot would be the first target instead of the Fibonacci. But this is probably the best looking setup I have right now. It's still a new trade. I'm still interested in buying this. And so we'll just keep watching it and waiting for the valid signal to appear. Next, we had an open New Z dollar buy. And we had a class A zone here. I sent out a close signal yesterday. It had created a little one, and then it dropped, and then recovered and created a new one. So I thought, let's go ahead and take profit. Because of the price action on the dollar, because the dollar strengthened again, the pair did move higher. So it may go ahead and finally get to our final profit target on the original trade. But at this point, I'm looking at sell trades on this pair. So we did have a sell bubble here. We didn't have a break of this trend line, so I did not take the trade. I wasn't ready on just the buy bubble in the zone to do it. And it's a good thing I didn't, because it looks like the dollar has more to do in this direction before it's going to break down and give us a sell trade. So the New Zealand dollar sell, or the New Zealand dollar buy, excuse me. The win. And we made, I want to say 190 pips is what I said in the email. I think that's about what it was. And at this point, we're waiting for a New Zealand dollar sell to set up. And because the zone is invalidated, I'm not even ready to, and it's making a new high. I'm not even ready to put it on the newer open list. It's just going to be on the watching list for now. And next we have our pound trades. Those are still open. They were kind of looking a little sad yesterday when we looked at them, like they were just going for their stop outs. But lo and behold, it looks like they've started to move back in the direction of our profit targets. The euro pound trend line break and moving back down towards the profit targets. It had been trending in a fairly consistent way for several days in the direction of our break-even stop loss, but at least a small sign that we may be starting to see the beginnings of a breakdown back towards our planned profit, second profit targets. How about the pound CAD? The pound CAD also, it moved a little higher. It had been down here, and now it's moved a little higher. I'm waiting for it to make new highs and even punch through this supply zone to reach our final profit target of the monthly pivot. It's not there yet, but I'm hoping that we're going to see this larger long-term move start to start to appear that I've been anticipating for several weeks. Pound dollar, New Zealand dollar. That's the next one we want to look at. Pound dollar, New Zealand dollar is dropping. It hasn't really started moving in the direction of our target again yet. It's still in this downtrend. We had the starts of a buy bubble. I still think we are. I just think it's kind of trailing what we're seeing on the other pairs. So the trade is still open. I'm just waiting to see it start to move again in the direction of our final planned profit target for this trade. Pound Aussie. Pound Aussie was looking a little better. It's still moving sideways, so really no net change. It did have a high here it hadn't made before. I thought that might continue and we'd get to this weekly pivot, but we're not going there yet. So we're just holding on and waiting for it to move. If the other pound pairs start moving, these pairs will move. These will generally trail those, just because especially the Aussie has a different kind of pressure on it right now than those other pairs. And finally, the pound Swiss. This would look like it was going to stop out, and this, in fact, reversed nicely. It broke through this trend line, 3 divergence lines, trend line break. If we get a triangular moving average color change and some additional upward price action, then I might be convinced that this is starting to move again in the direction of our planned profit target at last month's monthly pivot. So those are the updates of our new and open trades. Unfortunately, we did stop out on some signals, but that's not all bad news because it just tells us that we were a little bit early to the party. This is why I don't trade every single pair as soon as one opens up. Like if the dollar yen opens up, I'm not going to trade all the yen pairs because we want to kind of tiptoe in. So when we have a signal on one pair, we'll trade that pair only. And if we get similar confirmation on other pairs, as that confirmation appears, we may take trades on it. In this case, it just wasn't ready, and we took a small loss. But we always have an opportunity because it was a control loss, and we sized our trades. We did all the things we were supposed to do right. We have plenty of equity and plenty of leverage left to wait patiently for the next valid signal and then trade this again and see if we can make this trade plan a reality. Going back to the watching list, we still have some things we haven't talked about. Let's look at the Swiss yen, pound yen, euro yen, Aussie yen. Let's look at all these yen pairs and just see real quickly what they're doing. Is CAD yen in there? Did I have that in there? Oh, it was one we've already talked about that. Okay, so euro yen moving down. Looks like it had the start of a buy bubble that never really happened. As with the other pairs, we can use these recent wicks to draw a trend line to use for an entry confirmation. But this pair is still trending lower, and we have never really had enough to set up a buy trade on it at this point. Pound yen, very similar. I was kind of looking at a buy bubble here. Moving lower, no, the buy bubble disappeared, but I do have a place to draw this nifty new trend line that we can use as a point of entry confirmation. Again, we'd be looking for a triangular moving average color change and a break of this and a close above this trend line at minimum to take a trade on this pair, if not more. Looking at the euro yen, we did look at the euro yen. Let's look at the Swiss yen. Swiss yen, same kind of deal. This pair never really dropped as much as the others, but there's no buy bubble and no change in color of the triangular moving average, so we don't even have the minimum for taking a trade on this, so it's still on the watching portion of our list. Aussie yen. We're looking for a buy on this pair. It continues to move lower. It continues to print divergence, but no class A. There's no buy bubble on this on the 1 hour time frame. And I don't even really have a good place to draw a trend line on this at this point. So we're just going to watch this. And when all these yen pairs set up, they're pretty much set up at the same time. And then we'll be able to select which of them we want to trade. But there's no valid setup for me yet on this pair. And the last one is a New Zealand yen. Again, there's no buy bubble. We kind of have this downtrend happening. We haven't really made a new low, so it's still ranging from a definition point of view. If it moves lower, then we can think of the sell trade still moving downwards. There's just not even the bare minimum to take a trade on this. We could draw a trend line as we have done on some of the other pairs on these two wicks here. But I just don't, there's nothing here that would tell me to take a trade right now. So we're still watching this pair, waiting for a valid setup. A couple more things we want to look at. The euro dollar sell. It's another one we're anticipating. The dollar's just moving a lot further than we'd anticipated. So, and trends, they move farther than you think. So even though we got a sell bubble and we had divergence and we had trend line breaks, some other things happen, it just hasn't fully set up yet. So I did not trade this pair. I didn't, and to be honest, I'd really want to have class A. I'd probably really want to have a class A signal as well to a supply zone with divergence before I take this trade. And I just kind of drew a trend line and then redrew it. So we've defined the trend, the bottom of the trend, and this will help us also to time the entry of our trade. But we're still watching this. Pound dollar buy. That's another one we're watching. And this just isn't doing anything very clear. It's not really a buy trade or a sell trade. It's kind of moving in the buy direction now. If we kind of crunch up the chart, we can see it's ranging. It's moving in a range it hasn't broken out of. I wouldn't even pick a direction at this point on this pair. I'm just going to call it question mark because there's no setup. There's no real way to enter this trade based on or take a trade on this, and there's no momentum either. So we'll just leave it on the watch list and check it again over the next couple of days to see if something more clear sets up. Finally, the Aussie dollar. Now this has moved higher. I was thinking about a sell trade on this, but it's moved higher like the other pairs. It wasn't ready to break down. We did have a sell bubble on this. We had Class B divergence here. We never had a triangular moving average color change. We never had a trifecta, or we may have. It may have changed color again, but it's clearly going to need more time to trend before we're going to be able to set up a new trade on it. So we'll just leave it on the list, and when it sets up, then we'll go ahead and update the list and see if we can make some money on it. So that's where we're at right now. On these trades that we are watching, especially like the dollar Swiss, we still have the yen pairs. Actually, where did it go? Yeah, the dollar yen and dollar peso, these are kind of a priority for me to retrade when they do produce a new signal. So I'll be keeping a close eye on those. The other things we're watching, a dollar Swiss buy. That's probably the most interesting trade to me at this point in time. So, and I was watching this at the beginning of the week because it just moved so far. It made such a big move that I think it's likely, even if it goes a little further, it's probably getting to the point where it's exhausted. And if something happens to push it in the other direction, we're going to have a nice buy trade on this. So that's the most important trade I'm watching at this point. And then just managing our pound trades. We'll keep watching those, and hopefully they'll start trending higher for us, and we'll start to get back into the game with these positions. But at this point in time, just keep watching these three pairs: dollar Swiss, dollar yen, dollar Mexican, dollar peso, and then just the yen pairs in general. Just watch them, and we'll wait. And hopefully later in the week, it may take a couple of days, but we'll have new signals and new confirmation on these to go ahead and take some trades, and they'll be ready to go ahead and move in that direction. But they're not ready yet. They told us that by stopping out our dollar yen trade yesterday. The dollar peso, similarly, the dollar seems to have more room to move, although it's hitting headwinds here and dropping again. So we're getting close to a point where I think it's going to give us a trade setup, and it's going to give us some money. Just want to check and make sure there are no questions. Let's just pop over to the chat room. I don't see any questions at this point. Anytime you have questions during a live session, please just type them into the trading room chat here, and I can look at charts. We can answer your questions live, and hopefully be able to make anything clear that hasn't been made clear during our broadcast. Thanks very much for attending or viewing today's edition of the Trading Room Hangout, Trading Room broadcast, and we'll be back tomorrow with a new update, a new broadcast. Over that interim, if you have any questions, again, post to the group, the Trading Room group. Join if you haven't already. You can private message me from the community here. Just find EZFX and members and click the private message button to send me a message. Or you can, as always, send me an email, a traditional old email at ezfxignal@markgmail.com. Thanks very much, and we'll see you tomorrow. Happy trading, everybody. Bye.